Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters. I'm your host, Mitch. Glad to have you here. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about Commander on a budget. Today we've got an episode of Spare Change. Some episodes just don't fit in any of my other playlists, so this is where they end up. The topics on these episodes can vary pretty widely, so stay tuned to see what's in store for this one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. And while you're at it, subscribe and review our podcast as well. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio, and today's topic, well, it's going to be a little bit of a different one. We're going to be talking about the companion mechanic ban or change or whatever's coming here in the near future, and we'll jump into the specifics here in a bit. But basically, this is going to affect standard and historic. And Mitch, you might be thinking, Mitch, well, you run a Commander channel, so why are you talking about standard and historic news? And actually, this news is, I believe, it is going to affect Commander. This is going to have an impact on Commander, and we'll jump into that. But first, let's just talk about how this came about. So Wizards tweeted out this. They tweeted out on Monday, 6/1, there will be an update to the banned and restricted list impacting the standard and historic formats that will also address the companion mechanic. So yes, that first part might not be too relevant. A standard ban or a historic ban really doesn't affect the Commander format at all. The part that can affect the Commander format is going to be that part that say they're going to address the companion mechanic. Now, for those of you that don't know, the companion mechanic has been something that has been completely fine in Commander, really. I mean, basically, companions are not a problem. Their deck building requirements are strict enough outside of Lutri, basically. And Lutri is going to be that one. It's a 3/2 elemental otter that costs one Is It. It is companion. Each non-land card in your starting deck has a different name, and it's got flash, and it can copy it into their sorcery when it comes into play, if you cast from your hand. So essentially, the problem with Lutri is that Lutri's companion requirement is essentially not a requirement at all, because commander decks already start off with, each card in your deck having, this different name, essentially. So there was no companion requirement, and that's why it was immediately banned. Essentially, the day it was spoiled, the rules committee banned it the second it came out. The other one that isn't banned but can't be used as companion is Yorion, Sky Nomad, because it says that its companion is your starting deck contains at least 20 cards more than the minimum deck size, so you'd have to include 120 cards in your deck instead of 100, and there is that limitation for Commander to a 100-card deck, I guess, outside of the companion, which is the 101st card. So yeah, basically companions really haven't been a problem in Commander because their deck building requirements are strict enough that essentially you have to make a lot of sacrifices to make them your companion and to get that kind of extra advantage that you have as having the access to them as that 101st card. So you do have to make sacrifices to actually make them work in Commander. And in other formats that, was initially thought to be the case, that basically, they made the mechanic because they thought that the sacrifices would have to be enough to build your deck around to make that worth it to get that companion. But essentially, they're a much bigger problem in those other formats, and they really are taking over. Not too long ago, in Legacy, both Lurrus of the Dream Dead and Zerd of the Dawnwaker are banned, which in Legacy is one of the oldest formats. Legacy has a ton of broken things in it, and these cards are banned pretty quickly in them. Again, Lurrus is each permanent card in your starting deck has a converted mana cost of 2 or less. That's a companion for that. So that one really isn't too big of a restriction in Legacy, because a lot of extremely powerful things in Legacy have a very low converted mana cost. Obviously, when you have access to all those cards, it does. Zerd of the Dawnwaker was banned. It's got companion. Each permanent card in your starting deck has an activated ability. So again, that's pretty easy for Legacy decks to meet that requirement. And then also it combos extremely well with both Basalt Monolith and Grim Monolith. Essentially, you can tap and untap them for infinite mana. And having access to one half of that combo piece always with your companion is going to be an extremely powerful thing. Also, Lurrus was even banned in Vintage. And again, I'm no expert on Legacy or Vintage, but things don't get banned too often, if really ever. So Lurrus obviously is extremely powerful. And again, I believe those are the only companions so far that really have been banned in other formats, but there are problems being caused currently in Modern with a lot of decks switching to companions or moving to companions and them just kind of taking over the format as well. But essentially, it's an extremely broken and pushed mechanic, so much so that actually Saffron Olive, I think, did a great job kind of laying out exactly how broken Companion is in other formats compared to even other broken mechanics like Phyrexian Mana and other things. If you want to go check out that episode, Is Companion the worst MTG mechanic in the history of Magic the Gathering? Spoiler alert, he determines that yes, it is an extremely broken thing. Essentially, the problem goes down to this. You have access to an 8th card that always basically starts in your hand and that players can't stop or interact with because they can't, make you discard it or whatnot. And so games become very similar. You always have this kind of piece that you're playing around and you always have access to it every single game. And it's extremely powerful. If you don't have a companion, you're at a disadvantage for many circumstances. So that's basically what the kind of gist of all this is. Now, why could this impact Commander? Again, companions, not a problem in Commander currently. I don't believe that they will be or anything like that. They're not a problem because of that deck building restriction really affects Commander. So it really it works within Commander. So essentially, the potential mechanical changes that are being proposed by many in the community, basically there's a potential change that could happen to the way that the companion mechanic works. And because of that, if that changes in Standard and Historic, that would probably change in Commander. So let's go through the potential changes that might happen and that are being talked about right now. Again, I have no insider information on this. I've got no sources inside of Wizards that are telling me, this is what's going to happen. These are just kind of things I've been hearing from the community, and these are potential changes that might happen to the mechanic itself. So let's go through them individually and kind of talk through each one and how that might affect Commander. So the first one is that basically that the deck, if it has a companion, it has to meet the color requirements, kind of like Commander, basically. So essentially your companion in other formats like Standard, that would be your, essentially kind of like a Commander. So if you had a Zerta deck, your deck could only have both red and white cards, kind of like, Commander, basically, where you have a color identity. Now, how would this affect Commander? It wouldn't, because your companion already has to kind of fit within your Commander's color requirements, which then fit within your deck. So the way that would work, I don't believe that would change. I don't think that the Rules Committee would make any kind of a change to that. I don't think that would change at all if that were, and I don't think that's a likely change, but we'll see what Wizards does on June 1st. So the next one would be basically do away with the mechanic completely. So essentially, the logic behind this one is that, yes, okay, so these certain Commander or companions are starting to get banned in other formats. So basically then the next companion, that wasn't being heavily played because there are more powerful ones, is going to take that slot, and then really powerful decks are going to be built around that one, and then that will get banned, and then the next one, and the next one will get banned. So basically, they're just saying that the entire mechanic will be done away with completely and essentially never revisited because it's just such a broken thing. Again, Saffron Olive in his episode said basically this is more powerful than Phyrexian Mana, which is an extremely broken thing. It's more powerful than Storm. So all those things, and again, it's just opinions, but I do think it's a very powerful mechanic in other formats outside of Commander. And so basically they're going to do away with the mechanic completely. And this would essentially, I think, be a Rules Committee all these decisions are Rules Committee decisions, but basically the Rules Committee could do one of the two following. They could say, okay, yeah, sure, we'll, not allow that mechanic in Commander either because, we just follow then kind of what, what's going on in Standard. We want to make things consistent throughout formats. So I'm sorry for those of you who built decks that have companions. Those companions are no longer allowed to be your companion. We're not doing a 101st card. That would be removed. The other decision the Rules Committee can make is, yeah, okay, fine. That's fine for Standard and Modern and Historic and other formats or whatnot, that mechanic's changed, but Wizards does not control Commander and the rules in Commander. So basically, you can still have a companion in Commander because it's not a problem in this format. Now, I guess, actually, I did mention that the one silver lining, I guess, for some players that if companions were banned, or the mechanic was banned in Commander, that Lutri then would be unbanned because then you just can't use it as a companion anyway because it's not a thing. But Lutri, there's no problem with using Lutri in your 99 or as a commander because it's not a broken card outside of it being a companion. So basically, that is the kind of do away with the mechanic completely approach that could happen. The most likely one that I've been hearing essentially is going to be a 6-card hand adjustment. So basically, right now, the main problem with companions is that they're essentially an 8th card in your hand. Again, not really in your hand. They're in their own zone that is hard for players to deal with. But essentially, this change would say, okay, you're allowed to play with a companion if your deck still meets those requirements or whatever for the companion. But you also, now when you start off the game, you only get 6 cards instead of 7 because that companion is essentially your 7th card. So that is a change that I've been hearing that could happen and that would work within kind of the framework of the companion mechanic without too many big changes. Obviously, you just say, okay, now if you play with that, you're just deciding to only draw 6 cards to start the game. And that's something you have to decide if that's worth it or not. Now, this would obviously weaken decks that have companions, so would that work or not? I'm not sure in those formats. But basically then, does that get applied to Commander is the question. So if you decide to, build a deck that's got Zerta as your companion, now you have to also start off with 6 cards in your hand instead of drawing 7 like everyone else. So is that something that that Commander decides to change as well? Is that something that the Rules Committee decides to move? I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for them. Again, I think this is just really interesting to see that basically we're going to be seeing on 6/1, June 1st, we're going to be seeing, I guess it's next Monday, it's coming up quick, what the Wizards' decision is going to be. Is it going to be one of these kind of mechanical changes? Is it going to be none of them? Is it going to be a different kind of mechanical change? And then basically from there, again, Wizards does not control Commander. We're going to see, does the Rules Committee decide to make an adjustment that kind of mirrors what Wizards' adjustment was, or a different one, or none at all? Again, companions are not a problem in Commander as of right now. I don't believe they're going to be either. They're working fine. The requirements are strict enough that, you can't just slot companions into any deck. You've got to make sacrifices to do so. There is a cost to doing so. So because of that, again, not broken in Commander, but there might be a mechanical change in other formats like Standard and Historic that are going to be discussed. And again, those will probably affect, Modern, Legacy, Vintage, all those other formats that Wizards actually controls. But as for Commander, it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of plays out because the Rules Committee is ultimately the one who makes the decision. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what kind of news comes out next week. It's going to be really interesting to see what Wizards does, and it's going to be interesting to see what, the Rules Committee does kind of in response to that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I hope you are too. Comment below with your thoughts on this. What decision do you think that Wizards is going to make? Are they going to make one of these 3 mechanical changes? Is there going to be a different change that you think would be better? Yeah, so just comment below and let me know what you think. And as always, thanks again and have a good one. And make sure you're following us on social media for more updates and sneak peeks on future episodes. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons who help make this show possible. I truly couldn't do any of this without your support. If you want to support this channel directly, consider becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, including being able to vote on future commanders for deck techs. There are even tiers where you get your own personalized deck tech dedicated to you. You can check out all the Patreon tiers and rewards at patreon.com/commandersquarters. If you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Here at the Commander's Quarters, we're all about budget Commander. So while you're at it, go ahead and check out some of our other types of episodes. And with that, I'm out of here. Thanks again and have a good one.